Have you ever faced a season of deep loss, feeling as if hope is just out of reach? The story of Ruth and Naomi speaks directly to moments like these, showing us that even in times of heartbreak, faith can open the door to unexpected blessings. Ruth and Naomi endured tremendous loss, but found strength in each other and in their trust in God, a bond that transformed their lives and led to a new purpose. In today's video, we'll explore how their journey from sorrow to hope can inspire you to find faith and resilience in your own struggles. Join us as we uncover the powerful lessons of healing, support, and renewed purpose that Ruth and Naomi's story offers, and discover how you too can find light in life's darkest moments. To understand the depth of Ruth and Naomi's journey, it helps to begin with their background and the historical context that shaped their lives. Ruth's story takes place during the time of the Judges, a period marked by social instability, frequent conflicts, and a fluctuating commitment to faith among the people of Israel. For many, survival in this era was uncertain, especially for widows who were often left vulnerable without the support of a husband or sons to provide for them. Naomi, a Hebrew woman from Bethlehem, and Ruth, a Moabite, were both widows living within this challenging cultural backdrop. Naomi's life had been rooted in Bethlehem, in the land of Judah. During a severe famine, she and her husband Elimelech decided to move their family to Moab, a neighboring nation, in search of food and security. It was there that Naomi's two sons married Moabite women, one of whom was Ruth. However, tragedy soon struck Naomi's family. First, she lost her husband, and then both of her sons died, leaving her alone with her two Moabite daughters-in-law in a foreign land. In ancient society, this situation was devastating. Without male protectors, Naomi and her daughters-in-law faced a life of destitution and uncertainty. Ruth, on the other hand, was from Moab, a land often at odds with Israel. As a Moabite, she would have been viewed with suspicion or prejudice by many Israelites, and her decision to follow Naomi back to Judah would not have been an easy one. Despite the challenges of integrating into a foreign culture, Ruth felt a deep loyalty toward Naomi, choosing to stay by her side rather than return to her own family. This decision is one of the defining moments of her story, marking the beginning of a journey that would ultimately bring her into the fold of the Israelite community and change her life forever. When Naomi learned that the famine in Judah had ended, she decided to return to her homeland. It was a difficult choice, but one that held a glimmer of hope. Naomi believed that in Bethlehem she might find some support, perhaps even from extended family members. Ruth, however, faced a different set of choices. She could have returned to her own people and sought a new beginning there, yet she chose a different path. Her decision to accompany Naomi back to Bethlehem shows a rare strength of character and a profound sense of loyalty. This was not just a journey across borders. It was a journey of faith, as Ruth was committing herself not only to Naomi, but also to Naomi's God and people. The story of Ruth and Naomi's return to Bethlehem is a testament to the power of family bonds and loyalty. While Naomi's grief weighed heavily on her, Ruth's unwavering support and decision to embrace Naomi's culture and faith provided both of them with a sense of purpose. Together, they stepped into the unknown, with only their faith and each other to lean on. This bond between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law would become the foundation for one of the Bible's most inspiring stories of resilience, loyalty, and redemption. This context sets the stage for the trials and triumphs that lie ahead, revealing the social and spiritual challenges that Ruth and Naomi would face on their journey. With Naomi's return to her homeland and Ruth's bold choice to stay by her side, they embarked on a path that would test their faith and ultimately lead them toward a new beginning. The story of Ruth and Naomi is steeped in profound loss. When we meet them, they have each experienced a series of heartbreaking events that left them vulnerable and uncertain about the future. Naomi's journey from Bethlehem to Moab with her husband and 2 sons was one marked by desperation, as they sought refuge from famine in their homeland. For a time, it seemed as though their decision to leave Bethlehem had brought stability. However, this semblance of security was shattered when Naomi's husband Elimelech passed away, leaving her a widow in a foreign land. Naomi's grief was compounded by further loss when her 2 sons, who had married Moabite women, also died. Within a span of years, Naomi had lost her husband and both of her children, her entire immediate family. In ancient times, especially in patriarchal societies, widows were among the most vulnerable individuals. Without a husband or sons to support her, Naomi found herself alone in a land not her own, with no apparent means of financial support or social standing. Her daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, also became widows, facing the same bleak prospects in a culture where a woman's security was typically tied to her male relatives. Grief-stricken and bitter, Naomi decided to return to Bethlehem upon hearing that the famine had ended. She believed there was nothing left for her in Moab, and that perhaps in her homeland she might find some form of relief. Naomi's pain was so intense that she expressed a deep bitterness toward her circumstances, feeling as though the hand of God had turned against her. She even went so far as to say that she should no longer be called Naomi, which means pleasant, but rather Mara, meaning bitter. Naomi's sorrow paints a vivid picture of despair, a place where hope seems all but lost. For Ruth, the loss was equally devastating, yet her response was markedly different. When Naomi decided to return to Bethlehem, she urged her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab, where they could potentially remarry and rebuild their lives among their own people. While Orpah ultimately chose to stay, Ruth made the surprising decision to accompany Naomi on her journey back to Bethlehem. In one of the most powerful statements of loyalty and love in Scripture, Ruth told Naomi, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Ruth's commitment went beyond familial duty. She was choosing to embrace not only Naomi's people, but also her faith and her fate, whatever that might entail. The choice Ruth made wasn't an easy one. By leaving Moab, Ruth was walking away from everything familiar, including her culture, family, and the possibility of a more stable future in her own land. She knew that as a Moabite entering Israel, she might face discrimination, prejudice, and rejection. Nevertheless, Ruth's loyalty to Naomi was so strong that she willingly accepted these potential hardships, choosing to support her mother-in-law no matter the cost. In many ways, Ruth's decision reflected a deep faith, a belief that somehow staying with Naomi and following her God would lead to a meaningful outcome despite the immediate challenges they faced. The journey to Bethlehem was not just a physical relocation, it was an emotional and spiritual transition for both Ruth and Naomi. They returned to Bethlehem with little to their names, relying only on each other and a shared faith in the midst of their suffering. They had no guarantee of provision or support and were essentially starting over from scratch. Naomi's grief and Ruth's loyalty became the foundation of their relationship and the strength they leaned on as they faced the unknown together. This period of hardship highlights the depth of Ruth and Naomi's bond and the resilience that emerged from their shared struggles. The losses they endured could have easily separated them, yet they chose to face their grief together, forming a partnership that would ultimately lead to restoration and redemption. The shared sorrow, the unbreakable loyalty, and the willingness to face uncertainty would soon open doors neither could have anticipated, leading them to a story that would be remembered as one of the Bible's most powerful narratives of faith in times of loss. Ruth's decision was remarkable, not only for its loyalty but also for the risks it entailed. As a Moabite, Ruth was an outsider in Israel and would likely face prejudice and marginalization. She was leaving behind her homeland, family, and all the security that Moab could have offered. By accompanying Naomi to Bethlehem, Ruth entered a foreign land where her status as a Moabite widow would make her vulnerable. There was no certainty that they would find food, shelter, or even acceptance among the Israelites. Yet Ruth chose this path willingly, trusting in the God of Israel, whom she had come to know through Naomi, and hoping that he would guide and protect them. This act of loyalty and selflessness reflects Ruth's character and her commitment to love unconditionally, even in the face of hardship. Her choice to stay with Naomi was an act of faith as much as it was an act of loyalty. Ruth's declaration shows her strength and determination to remain devoted, not just to Naomi, but to the new life she was adopting in Bethlehem. Her faithfulness would soon set the stage for the blessings and providence that would unfold in their lives. Yet at this point, Ruth could not have foreseen the outcome. She simply trusted in the journey ahead, guided by her love for Naomi and her belief in the God of Israel. As Ruth and Naomi set out on their journey to Bethlehem, they faced a path filled with uncertainty. This journey wasn't just a physical relocation. It represented a profound act of faith and hope. Naomi was returning to her homeland with little more than the clothes on her back and a heart weighed down by grief, while Ruth, a Moabite widow and foreigner, walked into a place she had never known. Together, they faced the challenges of this journey, driven by a shared resilience and a quiet but steady hope that perhaps something better awaited them in Bethlehem. The distance from Moab to Bethlehem would have been physically demanding, especially for two women traveling alone in ancient times. They would have faced potential dangers from harsh landscapes, lack of provisions, and the threat of bandits along the way. The emotional toll was just as significant. Naomi, overwhelmed by her grief, could only hope for a safe arrival, while Ruth, who had left her family and homeland, had only her faith and love for Naomi to sustain her. Despite these obstacles, Ruth and Naomi's bond provided them with strength, a testament to the support and encouragement we can draw from one another in times of trial. For Naomi, the journey to Bethlehem was bittersweet. Returning to the land of her people also meant facing the memories of her past life and the loved ones she had lost. Yet she held on to the small hope that her people might provide some measure of security. Ruth, meanwhile, was taking a tremendous leap of faith, leaving behind everything familiar to her. She was not only moving to a foreign land, but also adopting a new culture, new customs, and most importantly, the faith of Naomi's people. In this way, Ruth's journey to Bethlehem was not merely a change in location, but a commitment to a new life, defined by faith in the God of Israel. When they finally arrived in Bethlehem, their return didn't go unnoticed. The town was stirred at the sight of Naomi after so many years, and her grief was still evident. She told the townspeople to call her Mara, meaning bitter, instead of Naomi, which means pleasant. This moment shows the depth of Naomi's sorrow. She felt as though she had returned empty-handed and that life had stripped her of all she once had. Ruth, however, stood by her side, embodying a quiet hope. Though Naomi felt abandoned by fortune, Ruth's presence reminded her that she was not entirely alone. The arrival in Bethlehem marked a new chapter for Ruth and Naomi. Despite Naomi's sorrow, this place held the promise of a fresh start. Ruth's faith in Naomi's God and her willingness to serve alongside Naomi would open doors neither of them could have anticipated. Little did they know that through Ruth's resilience and loyalty, their lives would soon take an unexpected turn for the better. Bethlehem, the house of bread, would prove to be not only a place of physical sustenance, but also a place where spiritual restoration and redemption awaited. This journey of faith and hope serves as an inspiring example for anyone facing uncertainty. Ruth and Naomi's decision to move forward despite their losses reveals the power of faith to carry us into the unknown. Their story encourages us to press on, even when the future feels unclear. For Ruth, every step to Bethlehem was an act of faith, and her unwavering support for Naomi reflects the beauty of loyalty and the strength that can be found in mutual trust. Together, they remind us that even the longest and most challenging journeys can lead to unexpected blessings. Once in Bethlehem, Ruth and Naomi were faced with the challenge of survival. With no means of income or family support, they needed to rely on the kindness of others. According to Jewish law, the poor and the foreigner were allowed to glean in the fields during the harvest, picking up leftover grain that had fallen. Ruth, determined to provide for both herself and Naomi, set out to find a field where she could glean. It was in these humble beginnings that the hand of divine providence began to work in their favor, as Ruth unknowingly chose a field belonging to Boaz, a wealthy and compassionate landowner who was also a relative of Naomi's late husband. Boaz noticed Ruth almost immediately. He was struck by her dedication and strength, having heard of her loyalty to Naomi and her willingness to leave her homeland to support her mother-in-law. Boaz approached Ruth with kindness, offering her protection in his fields and instructing his workers to allow her to gather freely. He even encouraged her to drink from the water provided for his workers, a sign of inclusion and respect uncommon for a foreigner. Through these gestures, Boaz extended an unexpected kindness that would soon change Ruth and Naomi's lives. Ruth's encounter with Boaz was a turning point in their journey. Boaz's generosity provided Ruth and Naomi with a steady source of food and protection. Ruth, moved by Boaz's kindness, expressed her gratitude and humility, recognizing that she had found favor in his eyes despite being a foreigner. Boaz responded by praising Ruth for her loyalty and selflessness, telling her that she was under the protection of the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. His words reassured Ruth, affirming her choice to follow Naomi and to adopt the God of Israel as her own. As Ruth continued to glean in Boaz's fields, his interest and care for her grew. Boaz saw Ruth's character, not just her circumstances, and his respect for her deepened. He went beyond the letter of the law, ensuring she had ample grain and even instructing his workers to leave extra for her to gather. Through these actions, Boaz provided Ruth and Naomi with more than just sustenance. He offered them dignity and hope. Naomi, upon learning of Ruth's encounter with Boaz, began to see the glimmers of divine intervention. She recognized Boaz as their kinsman redeemer, a relative with the potential to restore their family's name and property according to the customs of Israel. This connection revived Naomi's hope, and she encouraged Ruth to continue gleaning in Boaz's fields, as it was clear that his kindness represented a greater plan unfolding in their lives. Naomi, who had once felt abandoned by God, began to sense that perhaps they were not alone in their struggles. The encounter with Boaz showed Ruth and Naomi that even in the darkest times, unexpected kindness can be a sign of divine provision. Boaz became a source of stability and compassion in their lives, reflecting God's grace and protection. For Ruth, this kindness validated her faith journey and her choice to stay with Naomi. Boaz's actions remind us that we can be instruments of hope for others, offering refuge and support even when they come from different backgrounds or face difficult circumstances. Ruth and Boaz's meeting serves as a powerful example of how acts of compassion can transform lives. This encounter was no mere coincidence. It was a divinely orchestrated step toward restoration and renewal. Through Boaz, Ruth and Naomi found security and dignity, reinforcing their faith in a future they could not yet fully see. Little did they know this relationship would lead to a legacy far greater than they could have imagined. As Ruth continued to work in Boaz's fields, the relationship between them deepened. Naomi, recognizing Boaz's role as a kinsman redeemer, encouraged Ruth to seek him out, according to a custom that allowed close relatives to marry a widow and restore her family's legacy. Ruth, trusting Naomi's wisdom, approached Boaz in a respectful and humble manner, signaling her hope that he would take on the responsibility of redeeming her and Naomi's family. Her actions demonstrated not only courage, but a deep faith in the traditions of Naomi's people and the God they served. Boaz, moved by Ruth's kindness and loyalty, responded positively. He expressed admiration for her character and agreed to fulfill the role of kinsman redeemer, though he first had to ensure that another relative who held a closer position in the family line would not exercise his right. Boaz's willingness to follow the proper process showed his respect for Ruth, Naomi, and the customs of his people. It was a clear sign of his integrity and his commitment to doing things honorably. Ultimately, when the other relative declined, Boaz willingly took Ruth as his wife, securing her and Naomi's future. Through her marriage to Boaz, Ruth found a sense of security and belonging she had likely thought was lost forever. Naomi, too, was given a new hope. The birth of Ruth and Boaz's son Obed brought joy not only to Ruth, but also to Naomi, who became a beloved grandmother. This child symbolized a fresh start, a restoration of family lineage, and a reminder that even the darkest losses can lead to new beginnings. Obed's birth carried a profound significance, as he would eventually become the grandfather of King David, connecting Ruth and Naomi's story to the lineage of Israel's greatest king, and ultimately to the genealogy of Jesus Christ. This miraculous turn of events transformed Ruth and Naomi's lives, redeeming their past suffering and elevating them from a place of despair to one of joy and purpose. Naomi, who had once called herself Mara out of bitterness, could now see how God's hand had been at work, bringing redemption from her sorrow. Ruth's journey from Moab to Bethlehem was rewarded with a family, a community, and a legacy that would impact generations to come. In many ways, Ruth's faith and loyalty opened doors to blessings that reached far beyond her own lifetime. The story of Ruth and Naomi holds timeless lessons that resonate as deeply today as they did thousands of years ago. For those facing their own losses, uncertainties, and new beginnings, Ruth and Naomi's journey provides a roadmap of resilience and hope. Their experiences show us that even in the midst of profound hardship, there is a way forward if we allow faith and loyalty to guide us. These qualities are not only foundational for navigating life's challenges, but also serve as powerful reminders that our journeys, no matter how challenging, are woven with purpose. One of the most significant lessons we take from Ruth and Naomi's story is the importance of faith, especially when the future is uncertain. Faith for Ruth meant embracing Naomi's God and trusting in a journey that offered no guarantee of security. For Naomi, it meant returning to her homeland despite the bitterness and pain of loss, with only a faint hope that her people might offer support. This faith was not blind optimism, but a quiet, persistent belief that somehow God's providence would provide for them. Even when we cannot see a clear path ahead, faith can be the anchor that keeps us grounded, allowing us to take one step at a time. Ruth's commitment to Naomi and to a life in Bethlehem was an act of courage rooted in this faith, one that encouraged her to walk forward even when the road seemed insurmountable. Their story also emphasizes the power of loyalty and selflessness. Ruth's loyalty to Naomi, despite the personal sacrifices involved, speaks to the strength that can be found in human connections. Ruth chose Naomi's well-being over her own comfort and security, reminding us of the beauty of selflessness. Today, in a world where individualism often prevails, Ruth's choice to put her mother-in-law's needs above her own is a refreshing reminder of the strength that comes from caring for others. Her loyalty was not merely an obligation, but a reflection of her character a character that would ultimately lead her to blessings far greater than she could have anticipated. This selflessness, though simple, was transformative for both Ruth and Naomi, creating a foundation of trust and shared purpose. Another profound lesson we learn from Ruth and Naomi's story is the resilience to rebuild. After experiencing devastating losses, both women chose to continue living, trusting that somehow their lives still held purpose. Naomi, though grieving deeply, took the initiative to return to Bethlehem, where she felt some glimmer of hope might await them. Ruth, embracing the unknown, worked tirelessly in the fields to ensure their survival. This resilience to persevere, even when life seems harsh and unkind, is a testament to their inner strength. For anyone who has faced setbacks, their story is a powerful reminder that hardships do not have to define us. Instead, they can be stepping stones to a new beginning, as Ruth and Naomi discovered through their determination to keep moving forward. Ruth and Naomi's journey also teaches us about the importance of community and support. In Bethlehem, Ruth and Naomi found themselves in a community that provided them with the opportunity to glean and survive, and eventually they encountered Boaz, who would play a significant role in their story of redemption. Boaz's kindness and willingness to go beyond mere obligation show us that community is not just a place we belong to, but a network of people who can uplift us in our time of need. His actions reflect the importance of looking out for those who are struggling, a principle that resonates deeply today. Ruth and Naomi's story reminds us that sometimes all it takes is one person's kindness to change the course of someone's life. Boaz's role in their lives serves as an encouragement for us to be that source of support for others. The concept of redemption is woven throughout Ruth and Naomi's journey, reminding us that our darkest times can lead to new beginnings. Naomi, who had felt abandoned and bereft, was ultimately blessed with a grandson, Obed, who brought renewed joy into her life. Ruth, once a foreign widow, became part of the lineage that would lead to King David and, ultimately, to Jesus Christ. This extraordinary transformation from loss to legacy is a reminder that our struggles do not go unseen or unrewarded. While we may not always understand why we face certain hardships, Ruth and Naomi's story suggests that there is often a greater purpose at work, one that may unfold in ways we could never anticipate. Their story also underscores the importance of embracing new opportunities. Ruth, by choosing to accompany Naomi, embraced a life in Bethlehem with all its unknowns, showing that sometimes stepping out of our comfort zones can lead us to greater blessings. Her willingness to adapt, to glean in the fields, and to work hard despite her status as a foreigner reflects a resilient and hopeful spirit. This openness to change, even in the face of discomfort, offers a lesson in courage. Today, as we face our own challenges, Ruth's example reminds us that taking risks, embracing the unknown, and keeping an open heart can bring new paths to fulfillment and purpose. Finally, the legacy of Ruth and Naomi is a powerful reminder of how our lives can impact others, often in ways we may never see. Ruth's unwavering faith and Naomi's resilience ultimately led to a legacy that would transcend generations. Their story became part of the heritage of Israel and played a role in the ancestry of Christ. This ripple effect encourages us to view our struggles and sacrifices as seeds that may grow into something meaningful, even if the full impact remains unseen in our lifetimes. In our daily lives, we can hold on to the hope that our actions, when rooted in faith, loyalty, and resilience, contribute to something greater than ourselves. In reflecting on Ruth and Naomi's journey, we find timeless lessons of faith, loyalty, resilience, and hope. Their story inspires us to keep moving forward, to trust in the unseen, and to believe that even in our greatest losses, there is a purpose waiting to unfold. Ruth and Naomi's legacy continues to remind us that through faith and compassion, we can find light even in the darkest of times. We're reminded that life's challenges often bring unexpected blessings, even if we cannot see them immediately. Ruth and Naomi's journey from loss to fulfillment shows us that when we are steadfast in our faith and supportive in our relationships, new doors will open, revealing hope where once there was only sorrow. Their story reassures us that there is beauty on the other side of hardship and that every trial can lead to transformation. If you're looking to cultivate a life grounded in faith, resilience, and renewal, consider exploring our ebook, 30 Habits to Draw Closer to God. This guide offers practical, faith-based habits designed to strengthen your connection with God and provide you with tools to navigate life's challenges. Just as Ruth and Naomi found strength in each other and in their faith, this ebook can support you in building a foundation of spiritual growth and hope in your own journey.